We are still here working away at this boatyard in Mexico, refitting our 40-year-old sailboat so we can set sail across the Pacific Ocean. Lately, our primary focus has been rebuilding our forward cabin, where we tore out and replaced a rotten bulkhead. With the structural work out of the way, we began making the forward cabin livable again. And although we are so close to marking this project off our list completely, there are still some important items left to do. With the fiberglass fully cured on the exterior side of the bulkhead, it was time to prepare it for the next step. Gary wasn't able to fit in the storage locker, so I was elected to tackle this dirty job. I gave it a quick sand to knock down any rough edges, vacuumed out all the debris, and then wiped down the entire surface to rid of dirt and fiberglass blush. Proper preparation is key for any boat project success. This wet locker stores our fenders, lines, anchor bridle, and is often closed up full of stuff soaked in salt water. We chose to paint it with the TotalBilge epoxy paint to protect it from grime, sludge, mildew, and give it a nice clean white finish. The paint was easy to apply and only required a couple coats. I was super happy with how fresh and clean this area looked with the new paint job. The time has finally come for us to put the chain plate on and get this forward cabin put back together. So I'm hoping by the end of the day that we even have cushions down here. We'll see how it goes. We applied an entire tube's worth of polyurethane sealant to the chain plate pocket, backing plate, bolt holes, and every mating surface. This sealant remains flexible, so when the inner forestay is tensioned, the sealant will not crack and allow water to get in our brand new bulkhead. Well, we just had a little bit of an oops here with our backing plate. There was a little gap that Gary noticed when we put it on behind the backing plate. And it turns out that there was a little bit of like wood from where he drilled the holes like in there, and it was keeping it not from sitting flush. So we had to rip it all out quickly. And now he's just cleaning it off, and we're gonna put it back on. Boat projects never go as planned. Things were going way too well this morning. And now we have this, but that's okay. I think we're ready to try again. Tightening these bolts is a two-person job. So Gary worked inside the locker, while I held a wrench on the inside. We assume these giant backing plates were added by a previous owner in response to the start of the rotting bulkhead. Although not really needed, we figured we might as well reinstall them and have a totally overbuilt chain plate installation. Having to communicate back and forth with a literal wall between us made this task a bit challenging. So Gary and I get along on projects pretty well, I would say 95% of the time, but there's 5% of the time when it's a bit challenging. Today is one of those days. But my friend Grace on Calico Skies must have knew that it was a challenging day because she just brought me a nice coffee and a cookie. Day's looking up. It's the little things here in this boatyard that make the crappy days a little brighter. That we had 2 bolts here that the threads were damaged, so we weren't able to get a good seal on them. Gary is out now asking around in the boatyard if anyone has a die set so that he can maybe fix the ones we have. If not, we'll have to order them and wait a few days for their arrival. So for right now, I'm just cleaning the chain plate up, or the backing plate up, making it nice and pretty. And then hopefully we can put up the ceiling and the rest of the trim in here today. Gary was able to clean these off with a die, so we're gonna try it again. I'm ready. Ready to stick it in?
Yeah.
Perfecto.
All right, go middle, bottom.
Middle, bottom. Starboard 3, starboard 2. It's like still like a ½ inch out. All bolted up and cleaned, it looked really solid to us. This meant the structural part of the bulkhead repair is officially complete.
This morning we're finishing up reattaching our staysail furler, and I took a picture on my phone of the number of threads that were exposed below the nut down here, so I can count the number of threads and adjust this back so it's the exact same tension that it was before we took it all apart.
After a bit of tensioning, untensioning, referencing the manufacturer's manual, and retensioning, we believe we had the furler tensioned correctly. Gary tightened up the final bolts, and then we straightened up our furling line and rewound it on the drum. One Life is starting to look like a sailboat again. Well, despite the fact that there's still no rudder. Have fun in there. Woo-woo. So it's another long day here at the boatyard. We have 2 weeks before our scheduled splash date, so we are just trying to give it all we've got to make that day. We know that we can delay it, but delaying it because of the tides here, we're only able to splash at high tide, which means that we'd have to wait a whole another week or so before we're able to splash again, which we don't want to do. So we're just gonna keep going. Gary's putting the ceiling in now, and I'm gonna go over to the lounge, or I'm actually at the lounge, getting ready to walk in and do some editing. I decided to take a shower, and I just want to mention that it's actually been really nice staying here on the boat compared to in an apartment like we were. I just feel like we're getting a lot more done. We're able to work on the boat whenever we want to. And the shower here is actually hotter than the shower was at our apartment. So it definitely has its perks. It has its downsides as well, but yeah, I think overall it's going pretty good being back on the boat. All right, time to edit.
While Brooke was off editing late into the night, I was scrambling around in the forward cabin. I must have installed and taken down these ceiling panels dozens of times, as just about every trim piece needed to be slightly sanded or cut down. Working overhead while kneeling on a wood bunk. The joys of boat life. I was able to reuse and repurpose all the trim pieces that we removed when we gutted the cabin. And although they weren't all glued into place yet, I think it was starting to look pretty good.
Well, I'm gonna call it a night. It's almost midnight. And I'm gonna go see how Gary's making out with the finishing of the forward cabin. All right. Our current bed situation. You'd think we're slobs, and we are slobs right now. Good night.
It's about 1 in the morning, and I've been up here in the forward cabin working away trying to get this trim all done. I'm having to cut, modify, sand pretty much every single piece of trim up here because when we refiberglass the bulkhead, of course, nothing exactly ends up in the exact same spot, and we had to redo the shelves too, so everything's just slightly different. But it is actually raining really hard right now. I'm sure you can hear it. And luckily, we got the chain plate all bolted in and sealed up today with lots of sealant. So this is the first good test of it. And I don't see any drips. So that's a good sign because we don't want another rotten bulkhead. I think I might just about call it quits because there's some lightning around and I don't want to have our inverter on to run our power tools anymore, I don't think. I've been using the saw to cut the pieces of trim and the shop vac to clean up my mess. And I might wait a little while for this electrical storm to pass. I really want to get this forward cabin done. I'm tired of working on it. Carpentry is not my favorite thing to do. I think it's coming out okay, but I'm eager to have it done, put back together, and check this one off the list. Well, I'm too close to stop now, even though it's 2 in the morning. But the last thing I have to do now that I've got this cleaned up is glue in the remaining trim pieces. I'm going to use some more of the liquid nails. Here in Mexico it's called no más clavos, no more nails. And then this cabin will be ready for cushions and putting it back together. I'll still need to install the air conditioner under the bunk here, but we can at least somewhat put the cabin back together for a little while. Carpentry and finish work has never been my favorite or my strong suit, but I was so ready for this project to be finished, and there was no way I was stopping until it was completely done.
I just woke up and I peeked in the forward cabin. And it looks amazing. I heard Gary up talking to you guys at like 2 a.m. Oh my gosh, he's the best. It looks so good. This project took us so long and Gary put so much time and effort into it, and I just like can't believe it's finally done. Oh, I'm going to want to sleep up here instead of in the back cabin. Oh, all right, another long day. I'm only getting to enjoy the clean forward cabin for a little while because we need to transfer all of the stuff from our back cabin to our forward cabin so that we can begin working on our rudder. But Gary just dropped in our new aircon unit up here. How long do you think this install is going to take?
A couple days because I don't have all the parts I need.
That's part of the game. Waiting for the parts to arrive.
I was missing a few of the plumbing and ducting parts, but I decided to go ahead and mount the unit in place and complete all the electrical work. I had already made a plywood shelf for the control box and epoxied it to the hull. Brooke had painted the whole area with TotalBilge epoxy paint, so everything was clean and ready for installation. So, before we can actually check this forward cabin off the list, there's one more pretty major project that has to happen up here. If you remember back when we were in Colombia at the dock in Santa Marta, we ripped the old air conditioner out of here and got rid of it because it was like a 20-year-old unit and the compressor had shorted out and seized up. We decided finally that we're going to replace the air conditioner. So we bought a new 16,000 BTU per hour Webasto FCF Platinum. I want to go through the installation of what's necessary to install it. It's not going to be too difficult for us because we already have a lot of the wiring and the plumbing in place from the old unit. So that kind of makes it a little bit simpler. I've cracked into the electrical box today and I'm going through the connections that we're going to need to make. So we have our old wiring here. One of these feeds the pump for the seawater, and the other one is the power from the panel to the air conditioning unit. Those will get connected here to these terminals and these grounds. And then there's two other connections that need to be made out of this panel. One is for this temperature sensing wire, which needs to be attached to the grill here where the air is entering the air conditioner. And then there's also an additional wire that's needed to run to the new control panel. And that wire looks like this. We've got our electrical box all wired up. The pump wiring is these three. That's your line, your neutral, and your ground for the pump wiring. The power coming from the power panel, the 110 volt power, this is the line, the neutral, and the ground. And then I've got our temperature sensor wire, and this will go to the thermostat controller. And I routed them out the same grommets as the AC power, which I would prefer not to do, but I think it'll work fine. Okay, I've got the control box screwed in place and I've got the wiring all cleaned up and routed and cable tied into place. So I'm ready to drop the air conditioner in now. I've mounted the temperature sensor here right in front of the return air grill. And that way it's in the clean airflow and gets a good temperature reading of the air that's coming back to the air conditioner. The air conditioning install continues. I've gone ahead and installed the remote controller. I put it here in this cabinet side because I have easy access to the back of it, and the back of it's normally hidden by the cushions in the settee. And it's a little bit of a better spot over here than where the old one was over here on the bulkhead.
Just seems like the boat projects never stop. But here Gary is. He's changing out, what is it, the AC raw water hose?
Mm-hmm. You weren't planning on sleeping here anytime soon, were you?
Sleeping where?
Here.
Oh,
Anytime soon.
on the bed,
yeah.
Our settee. I mean,
because
I would like to go to bed at some point
well,
tonight, yes. With only a couple weeks left till we splash, and many boat projects left to complete, getting a full night of rest was just not an option. Well, when you have your nuts in order, I'll be ready. Alright, get your little grubby hand off of it. Number 5.
You didn't tell me the blue tape was sticking out. Shit.